Pop's Garden. Today we're going to be talking about the winter care of carnivorous plants. We have another video all about carnivorous plants, and you should watch that one first. And if you live in the north like me, where we get freezing temperatures, the plants need to come in for the winter. So there's certain winter care that they need. And even if you're not in like you live in California or Florida and you have these plants, you still have to do some cleaning up on them. So we're going to talk about that. So let's take a look at what's going on here. So if they're indoors for the winter, how do they get fed? Well, for the most part, we can see that there's quite a lot of bugs around, at least at our house. I see ants crawling around. I've got some spiders. We've got some flying insects, and they do get attracted to these plants. So we can take a look at the size of this picture here. This always just amazes me, the evolutionary perfection of these plants. They're just so perfect. But we look down in here, and we can see that there is some insect. I don't know what that is. I think it's a spider that crawled inside there, and it couldn't escape, and so it's being digested. So that would last this plant for at least about a month, and that almost gets us into the springtime at this point. So we don't really need to be actively feeding. However, if you do want to feed, you can get crickets live crickets from a pet store. You can get dried insects. You can put them in there. One that is not going to really have too much right now are Venus flytraps, Dionea muscipula. So these had completely died back. There's nothing. This is dormant, and they're still coming out of dormancy. So they're not going to throw out a lot of traps, and the traps that they do throw out don't last very long. You can see they're closed up with very large leaves. So as time goes on, this will develop into its more normal shape for summer. But you see that this distilled water in here that we have, make sure that you're using distilled water. Has to be there all the time. It cannot be out of there. So that needs to be kept filled up, and it should be kept clean. So if we take a look at the cobra plant here, or Sarracenia, we see that we have mealybugs. This is quite a mess. I've left this on purpose for you to see. And this needs to be cleaned up. So basically we can take a wet paper towel and wipe that off, and we'll spray this with Bayer's 3-in-1, not Safer's, because Safer's will kill this plant. It's an alkaline spray, but Bayer's 3-in-1 is a good insecticide. So anything that is all dried out like this, we'll get this cleaned up. And this is in pretty good shape. Now, you see how dirty these can get. So, and we have quite a bit of growth coming out the bottom from the roots. So we'll just cut that off, and we'll clean this up, and we'll put fresh distilled water in it. So let me put that aside. And you want to discard the diseased leaves, and you want to keep it away from the other carnivorous plants. So over here we have our Cape sundew. And we did in the video, the other carnivorous plant video, we transplanted this, and it is catching some insects that have been growing around. So it's semi-dormant in the winter time. It does produce active growth, so it doesn't need a lot of insects. So that'll work out quite well, and you can see it flowered. And now I just left this on again for demonstration purposes, and we'll just take that spent flower off. And otherwise than that. Now I have these under grow lights, and the grow lights are about a foot away from the plant. And I have about 60 watts of light over this. They need a lot of white light, but if you have a very bright sunny window, that will work as well for the Cape sundews. It's perfect in that environment, and you can see I keep these quite clean, and that's doing very, very well. So on these, you'll see these really large pictures here. We have some that are dried out, so it's just a matter of cutting those off, and you will get some yellowing of leaves over the winter time because there's a little bit less nitrogen for the plants. So you can see this leaf here, it's no good. We'll take that off. And these are in good shape. And you'll get some growth in here. So we'll leave that large picture on there. Look at the size of that thing. And you can see one, we've got a flower on it. Now, we don't want to take this off completely at this point. What we need here is we need what's called basal growth. That's growth on the bottom of the plant. This is basal growth. And we can get a new Nepenthes out of this. So this has to be larger before we take this off. So this will probably get another month, and then we'll cut this off, and then this will be replaced. And you can actually come in here along these areas in through here and root these. So right now we don't have any spots that root. You'll see a little bump between the leaves. None has really developed. There might be one starting right here, but you'll see this little ridge come out at this point. And when that does, then you can actually cut along these and root them. You root them in plain sphagnum moss. And when we do root them, we would cut this off, and we would cut the bottom leaves off, and we would cut these leaves in half because it doesn't have any roots. It doesn't need the leaves. So we would cut these leaves about like this, and we'd be able to root this with a rooting hormone. So we also need to clean this up. Take off these yellowing leaves here. So another way that we take care of these over the winter is to feed them with this Max C seaweed fertilizer, which is a 16-16-16. We use a half a teaspoon of this material in a full gallon of water, so it's quite weak. And what we're going to be doing with this is we're going to put them in a spray bottle, and we're just going to spray the leaves. Nothing should go on the soil itself. So we just spray this on the leaves. That's called a foliar feed. It's going to get its nutrients through the leaves. And we do this especially on the Nepenthes ventricosa. We do that once a month, and during the summertime we'll be doing it twice a month. But for the winter time it's semi-dormant, somewhat dormant, and we'll let that proceed with just the foliar feed. With the Venus flytrap will not get fed now. The cobra plant is also somewhat dormant. The only other thing that we sometimes will do is use a very light spray on the Drosera, which is the Cape sundew. But you notice that had insects on it, so we really don't need to feed it. So keep an eye on that. If the leaves are yellowing, once a month, foliar feed. Alright, so we have difference between the one that's flowering and the one that is starting to turn into a vine, which is what they do. This can be supported. I could tie this up like this, and it's going to go up to the ceiling at this point. But we cannot cut this off yet. If we need to manage this, we need to wait for this. Because if we look down in here, I'm going to turn this around very carefully. If we look down at the base of where this long vine is, you can see some basal growth here. But we cannot cut this off yet either because it's not enough. This has to get to, about 2 to 3 inches of leaves down here before we could cut this off. So that needs to stay on. So here's the difference. Here we have some good basal growth that is coming out, and it's going to be ready, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And here it's much, much smaller, and it needs to get up beyond what that other one is doing. But in the meantime, all we need to do is to clean this up. I have this hanging up in an east window in the plant room, and I also have artificial light over it, and another 60 watts, but those lights are over 18 inches away because it's more diffuse, it doesn't need as much light, and we do get some blackening of leaves here. We got to get that cleaned up, and we got to get this cleaned up inside here. And I do this like over the winter, maybe just maybe one time. This is like midway through the winter, so I take it out. It's kind of hard to manage. So we get that all cleaned up all the way in through here. And then you can see how well this is doing. Look at this. It's got quite a number of pictures. We can drop some insects into here. This picture's done, so we'll cut that off. This picture is almost done, but we'll leave it on. And we got to get rid of all these dried out leaves. Now remember, these need to stay constantly wet, but they are not in a saucer like the other carnivorous plants. It's got to be free draining. So throughout, once through the winter, midway through the winter, I'll get these all cleaned up, and by the time they get a little untidy again, it's time for them to go outside. So you need to look after that. So you can get some crickets at the pet store, and you can put them in there. You can also use, there's a dried insect you can put in there. Don't feed them food. That's not good for them. So it's rather simple things to keep things clean, and so you can continue to enjoy your carnivorous plants. At some point, we'll cut this off when we get a good basal growth, and then we can root along these spots in here. We can get, I would say at least 1, 2, 3 more plants in there, and when you cut them off, we wrap them in sphagnum moss, put them into a pot, and about a month and a half, they'll root, and then you can get more plants, and you can either put them in with the ones that you have or start a new one. So just keep at it, keep them clean, and thank you for watching. Please share, subscribe, and comment on my videos, and we'll see you next time on Bob's Garden. Remember, be curious, not judgmental.